Meeting of the Southbury Board of Finance will come to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, seating of alternates. I think we have a regular members here. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and someone new, a new face.
Hi, I am Lisa Cober, and
First name again?
Lisa
Lisa?
Cober. Happy to be joining you guys.
Thank you, Lisa. I suspect as an alternate. Alternates here participate fully in all the discussion, ask the questions. The only thing that would separate you from a regular member might be if you're not seated as a regular member for purposes of voting. So we encourage you to participate fully in all the discussions, ask all the questions. And remember, in grade school, they told you the only stupid question is the unasked question, and that goes for here too. So glad to have you with us, Lisa. Let's see, approval of minutes, January 12th. They were sent out. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Thank you,
Seconded.
Steve. Is there a second? Michael?
Second.
Thank you. Under discussion, additions, corrections, anything? If not, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? So ordered. Public comments. The public is here. This is unusual. We usually don't have the public. Would anyone from the public like to make a comment? I suspect not. Okay.
Wait a minute.
Well,
Let's say, Motormouth has to say something. I'm Judy Katzmark.
Judy, can you speak into the microphone, please? And please press the button so the green light is on.
You're green, and now you can really hear me.
So can people at
I'm Judy Katzmark, 646B Heritage Village. And I am also the chair of your senior commission here in town. And I have come with just one question at this point. I would like to know when the budget hearings are being held.
The budget hearings.
Hearings.
Technically, we're not supposed to respond, but that is the kind of question that certainly worthy of a response. Deanne, when, there's 3 sets of hearings.
Yeah, we have our first set the last week of February, Judy, which is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, starting at 7 o'clock. And that is
Starting February 23rd.
February 23rd. And then we have, let me bring up the schedule, sorry.
There will be 2 hearings held by the Board of Finance. Dan's looking up the dates for you.
So February 23rd to the 26th is the joint, it's a Board of Selectmen meeting the Board of Finances are invited to, and that's all the department head meetings. March 16th is the public hearing. And then March 16th is the regular Board of Finance meeting immediately after the public hearing, which will be another budget meeting. And then on April 5th is the final Board of Finance meeting after the Board of Finance releases the budget. It's the new charter meeting,
Right.
so that's the next one.
After corrections and additions, and thank you. Appreciate it.
Under new business, infrastructure study and benchmarking. In the budget for the current year, there is money for a study of infrastructure. There's a study for benchmarking, which the board put in last year when we were looking at the staffing levels. I think it was mostly staffing levels in all throughout the town. And when we put that money in the budget, we had also made some significant reductions. So the question becomes, should we continue with the infrastructure study? And tied into that, the reason it becomes a question, there's also the fact that our Public Works Director is no longer with us and has been working, has had the challenge to be working on an infrastructure study for the last 3 years, and things have been happening between bridges, roads, and a flood. So the work that needs to be done to better formalize or get sharper numbers and timings on our infrastructure reserve fund, which is a major fund for all our buildings, hasn't been done. With currently no current director, and if and when a new director shows up, he or she might have their hands full for quite some time, getting a rope around what's going on. The probability, I suspect, for them to do the comprehensive infrastructure that we had asked Blake to do is slim. So I'm wondering if we should earmark, authorize, transfer somehow money to have a professional consultant do that infrastructure, do a infrastructure study for us. The first infrastructure study was done about 10 years ago, and we did use an outside professional. And it is the basis of what we now do, but it is certainly dated. So the question might be, or the matter for discussion, should we abandon the benchmarking, yes or no? And if we do abandon the benchmarking, should we use that money for an infrastructure study? And if we're still going to do the benchmarking, should we tell the Board of Selectmen we would like an amount of money from either contingency or the general fund to do?
What we put in the budget last year, John, we put $25,000 in for the benchmarking, so that money is available if we were going to use that to do an infrastructure study.
And Dan has done a little bit of homework, and Dan, a ballpark cost for an infrastructure study of what we think we need might be about?
I spoke to one of our on-call engineers, and it's roughly between $24,000 and $25,000.
Happy coincidence, I suspect. I'm not going to get into that. I didn't talk to him. So I'd like to
can I
have
just
some
ask a question?
discussion about this.
Dan, did we use any of that money so far?
We have not used any of it, no.
Okay.
And when you say infrastructure, what does that entail? All of town hall, senior center, police?
The
any-
buildings,
any other
buildings, not roads, not vehicles, not bridges, just the buildings.
Not underground structures,
Not-
sewers,
No
nothing
parks?
underground.
No parks?
no parks,
No, not parks.
Well, what about
Buildings on
pavilions?
Historic buildings?
What about pavilions, like the pavilion at Ballantyne?
Open
Would they
if-
give us a
If we
useful
think
life
it's
on the roof?
needed, we probably ought to consider it. Let me put it this way. We have a whole bunch of things in the infrastructure reserve fund. And I think some of those things are in that plan. So I would imagine we would use infrastructure study money to cover buildings and the other things that are currently what we are in our infrastructure reserve, to make sure it's as up to snuff as it can be.
Library?
It's a building.
What are we giving up? I mean, what's the benchmarking thing that we're giving up?
If I remember the discussion last year, Jack was a proponent, I think we were all a proponent of doing it. We were concerned that I know every department, its silo is a holy grail for the people in those silos, but for the Board of Finance, not so much. Put it that way. Yeah, that's why we have so many friends. We wanted to take a look at other governments our size and see if they had the same staffing levels in their various governmental entities, how they structure themselves, where it was part-time, full-time, shared responsibilities, cross-department responsibilities, to see if there were any opportunities for the town to become more efficient and hopefully equally or more effective. So I think that's what we were looking at.
Yeah, I think if you look at our budget, 68% of our budget is labor costs. So we were kind of looking at a needs base of what each department needs. Some departments may need more staff, some may need less. It's just we were looking at what the department needs would be based upon workload, what like towns do, and just things like that.
And why are we giving that up?
Why are we what?
Well, you keep saying the money, I thought the money originally was for that. And you're saying,
Yes.
give that up, have an infrastructure study. Is that right you're saying?
We could swap if we feel that the benchmarking isn't needed on second thought, or we could do both and get infrastructure money from some other source. So we have several options.
The other option would be, we have about $1 million in our infrastructure reserve right now. Could we utilize some of those funds if we wanted to do both?
And then the other question for me is, like, what does outdated infrastructure study mean? Like, what does the infrastructure study from 10 years ago look like?
We,
Do you recall which firm did that?
we have a copy of it, Tim. I can't recall off the top of my head, but I could probably get it for you.
It has evolved, but we started with what they did 10 years ago. We took out everything under $5,000. We took out everything that was ADA required where we were grandfathered. There were several buildings for some reason that were not covered because the administration at the time thought they could do that themselves. That's some of the history of the original plan. Every year, working with Al in the last 4 or 5 years, Blake and Blake's predecessor, we look at all the line items in the infrastructure plan and say, gee, is this still relevant? Is it comprehensive? We've added things, we've subtracted things, we've changed the timing of when we thought we might do some things, and we've changed what we thought at the time would be the cost to do things. This was certainly necessary because time marches on. We don't do the study. The years come by, and we have to do stuff. So we have been responsive to the things that Public Works has said need to be taken care of now, being whatever year we were addressing. So we are not really working off the 10-year-old plan. That was the basis of the plan, which is constantly evolved. If you were to try to conform the two now, you'd never know they were the same thing. If that gets to the heart of the question. So, Michael?
Point of clarification, because branching off what Tom Connor was just saying, we had this benchmarking scenario, which was primarily looking at labor cost and human resources.
Organization.
Organizational stuff.
Organization, yeah.
But
Yes.
now we're shifting that just to the physical infrastructure?
Well, one of the things to do is to shift it. Another might be to say, no, we want to keep doing the benchmarking. And if we do that, we could probably find some money somewhere tonight, Dan's found it, to do a infrastructure study in addition.
In addition, okay.
Yes.
So Dan, when you were talking about the 24 to 25,000 magic number, that was primarily, so that wasn't the human resources benchmarking, that's just something completely different.
That was to have an engineer come in and look and give us an infrastructure plan.
And could we look into a consultant for the benchmarking as well?
Yeah, we
Because
actually.
I'm not
we
sure
looked-
why that was falling on Public Works Director.
No, that wasn't. The
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
infrastructure plan was. The
So this is all
benchmark was falling on.
different things.
On the finance office.
John,
Yes, John?
just a comment on this. I mean, with infrastructure falling under Public Works, I've been concerned for quite a bit of time. We seem to be having a revolving door as far as who is the Public Works Director and what is happening. And that is the driving force between keeping, in charge of keeping all our roads and our buildings and everything like this. Where do we stand now? What are we going to do to recruit? And should this study be then discussed with candidates and so forth and so on?
I know where we are, that's up to the Board of Selectmen in replacing or reorganizing the staffing. I don't know. I asked Dan to put this on the agenda because we've been waiting 5 years to get the infrastructure reserve fund in as good a quality as virtually all the other reserve funds. Is that, because I think our other reserve funds are well documented, well thought out. They're accurate would be a wrong word, because anything goes out 20 years can't be accurate, but it is very, very reasonable. The infrastructure reserve, we think there's too much guessing, and we've been waiting 5 years. I don't think in the next couple of years, even if we do, if and when we do get a new person, that they're going to be able to come up to speed quick enough to keep this thing moving. So that's why I've suggested that we find the money. We can find it through contingency, through the unassigned general fund, through this if we don't do it. But the first thing we need to do is talk about, do we want to, would the money for that become available if we decide to do it, from foregoing the benchmarking? Jack, I think, is very keen on the benchmarking. I'd like to hear what he has to think about whether or not we should forego the benchmarking. Jack? I've been prattling on.
Aye, sir. It was a good idea in the spring for this board. I don't think the reasons for doing the benchmarking study or potentially not doing it have changed. It's been a long time since we've compared ourselves, not just in terms of staffing, but in terms of processes and procedures and effectiveness of various departments. In my mind, the benchmarking was far more than just cost. It was also effectiveness in roles serving our constituency. So periodically, it's useful to try to figure out what best practice is. How far do we reach? I don't know. There's 167 towns, and we've got, or thereabouts, and we've got 20 or 30 that we view as comparable, and probably another 20 that we might think might have some best practices that ought to be considered within the scope of a study. And I think it's useful to look at what those towns, how those towns have evolved, and whether we can learn something from them, or whether perhaps, we're at the top quartile or the top decile of performing towns in many of our departments. That would be a nice thing to know, too. Mm-hmm. And for $25,000, that seems cheap, I think. And the 25 grand, I think, was an estimate at the time of the budget, what it would cost to do this with a consultant. I'd suggest that we rename the infrastructure study a buildings study. Okay. Just because infrastructure to me means far more than just buildings, and this really is buildings. I think Tim's idea of adding the Grange Hall and the community center and, any other structures that the town owns is useful. I'm not sure that considerations like ADA have changed a lot in the last 10 years. Maybe they have. I don't know whether they have. I don't think we need to tread old ground. We need to be explicit with whoever we hire on the things we really want them to research if we're going to do the infrastructure study. It probably is a good idea to do that study, and not having a public works director, we've probably already created a reserve out of salary savings since Blake left, to be able to pay for somebody to do the job that we've been looking for the last 5 years. So I don't think it's a bad idea to the infrastructure study. I think we ought to do both.
Well, But on the infrastructure study, though, I mean, or
We
what-
got- Excuse me. we're
Building
gonna call it
study.
the Building study.
Building
from
study.
now on.
on the building study, I don't know, I'm sort of, the fact that we don't have a public works director is the best reason for me for not doing it now. In other words, you know, somehow consultants do consultant stuff, and if they're not directed by the most important people in the room, as far as I know, from the standpoint of the buildings, then they often create la-la land stuff that we pay 25 grand for and doesn't do much good for us. I mean, I'm all in, I mean, I think we have the right people in the room to do the benchmarking, you know? So that part, I'm all in on that part. On the buildings part, the fact that we don't have a public works director sort of speaks to me against doing it now.
We are fortunate that our prior Public Works directors have had the availability of Al, who does all our buildings. And he has, I don't know how long he's been here, 5 years, 10 years, I don't know. But he knows these buildings, so luckily,
Okay.
he could be a very valuable resource for guiding this. So we need to get it done.
John,
Yes, Steve?
just to Tom's point, do we have, and I don't know if this is a question for Tim, Dan, whomever, do we have a timeline as far as bringing on board, interviewing for a new public works director, et cetera? I mean, we could vote yes on this tonight, and it's not like somebody's gonna walk in here tomorrow and start it. You know, we'd have to go out and follow all the proper procedures and protocols, et cetera. So we may have a new public works director in place by the time this study would be ready to go anyway, but I don't know if there's a timeline or who would, you know, where we stand with that vacancy.
Tim, thoughts?
Yeah, well, we haven't considered to put the Public Works job up again. There's two competent people in place right now that are taking over his responsibilities, so we might do maybe a reorg on Public Works and not hire a director, but we're not sure yet.
Would this reorg be part of the budget that you'll be presenting or have presented?
I think it is.
It's,
It is in there.
the position's in there, the Public Works Director position's in there, but as we decide to reorg, only because we had to release the budget, we haven't made any changes to that yet, but we would as we go through the
So the
process.
budget reflects the current staffing structure,
Right.
but there's a possibility that pretty soon after, you know, we'll say the budget gets passed, that there will be a new structure within that department.
There could be.
They,
But we,
they don't know.
We don't know if we'll have a public works director or what that will
Right.
look like a few months from now?
We're not sure.
Correct.
But I guess my point is we have enough for the right people in the room to do this, I guess, is my question, you know, because I, you know, and you say that Al, if you really believe Al's the right person in the room and that he can do this with these, you know, but I mean, we have enough people here that are the right people in the room to do this task, because I don't trust consultants in isolation.
To be honest with you, I mean, I would prefer to call it a capital reserve study. There's plenty of firms that are out there that are gonna give us timelines on how, you know, how long this useful life for this roof is on this building. And, you know, that's pretty much what they call it, is a capital reserve study. So it'll give us a better budgeting through the years to have that study done. And if it was done 10 years ago, it's definitely time to
To
do
do it
another
again.
one. Most of the communities I managed did it every 5 years.
Okay.
Let me offer this. Why don't we take them one at a time? Let's talk about the benchmarking. Jack made some very, very good points. Any other thoughts on whether we should discontinue the benchmarking funding in the budget? Period.
Whose thought was that
And
in the
if
first
we
place?
don't discontinue it, we will ask the administration, the first selectman, to find us a benchmark, or Dan, whoever is going to do it, to find a benchmarking consultant to work with Dan and, with Jack and someone from the Board of Selectmen to design a benchmarking study that would be useful when we get it. Any thoughts on that?
I mean, I think
Michael?
I think it makes a lot of sense. I thought Jack raised a lot of really good points. I think it's important that we partially have some sort of outside consulting firm for that, just because obviously we're a little close to a lot of the employees. We don't want to make it seem like we're, telling them how to do their jobs or do their jobs better, but I think it would be useful for a strategic point of the town to consider, as Jack said, where we are relative to other towns, where we are relative to Southbury, where we can be more efficient, et cetera. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Vivian? Yeah? Steve, thoughts?
Nothing different. Yeah, the
We
first
should
time it came
continue.
up. Yeah,
Tom, yeah?
Well,
find those
I g-
minutes.
I agree, and the same point as the other one, do we have, I think the consultant by themselves are useless. Who's the person, who's gonna engage from a town perspective that's gonna make it useful, right? That's kind of, does Tim and, have sufficient, Tim and the rest of the town have sufficient engagement kind of capability, I think, to make it useful?
For benchmarking, Tom?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have plenty of experience in that, so
Okay.
I have no issue with that whatsoever.
Okay, all right, fine. Then I'm all in too.
So it seems like there's no desire to ditch the benchmarking study, and we'll ask Tim and Dan to huddle in finding someone to execute it. And I think the Board of Finance would like to have Jack, if he'll accept the responsibility, to work on a work group with one or two other people, with a consultant to design it and make sure it gets to something we can use at the end. That's a key.
Happy to.
Thank you, Jack. Okay, so benchmarking continues on. Let's talk about the building study.
Well, let's talk about the capital. I think it's really what Tim said. It's it's kind of a building capital reserve fund discussion more than anything else, isn't it?
It could be a number of things. That's typically what most people look at is their long-term capital reserves and what they need to put away for the budget is on long-term capital projects.
We want to make sure we have the right things
Yeah,
lined up to be funded at the right time for the right amount of money.
right. And that to me makes more sense to be done, say, only marginally with public works, too much public works engagement, right? So that, but when you call a building, I don't know, I was still unclear about what exactly we're doing, but if that's what we're doing, yes, that makes sense to me.
Okay. That's what, I guess I'm at a loss to figure out what the right word is, so we don't torpedo the concept by picking the wrong word. Are we of a mind to want to do this now? Finally. For me, it's finally.
If not now, when? If
Correct.
it's overdue, then we're
Yeah.
just spinning our wheels.
And Al, as a local resource, our property, our manager for all our buildings, before he decides to retire, let's make sure we get him involved in this. Okay. Dan, I'm going to ask you, do you have a thought where we might reallocate $25,000 from? The contingency, the Public Works Department, unspent money from,
I would take it right out of the infrastructure plan, the current infrastructure reserve.
take it right out of the infrastructure reserve itself?
We have $1.59 million in that reserve right now, and so far this year, we've spent, actually, I'm sorry, we have $1,027,000 in there. We spent about $100,000 this year, so that's where I would take it out of.
In any given year, we could spend $100,000 or $1 million, so, but you believe there's more than enough money in there to cover the things we know we're gonna have to do in the next couple of years?
Yeah, because without a
Okay.
plan, we don't know if we're gonna even be spending the money properly or wisely. So this $1 million that's sitting there, we're doing the day-to-day maintenance of the buildings, but we don't know what the long-range plan is. So I would rather see us use the money out of there and then have a proper budgeting tool moving forward.
Well, okay, I'd entertain keep this moving. I'd entertain a motion that the Board of Finance request that the Board of Selectmen approve an additional a line item in the, for current spending, in the infrastructure reserve for a study.
Capital reserve study.
Building capital reserve study, to include buildings and parks. Those, I think that was Tim's concern, to make sure, because what's in that reserve is a lot of things other than the buildings, so we want to make sure it covers anything that might be in that reserve, or should be,
Yes.
okay?
Now, the only question I
there-
have, do we want to do it now, John, or do we want to add it in our budget process this year?
I want to get it done. We got to start.
Okay.
I want to start right away. We've been, if not, so when? We've been waiting 5 years. There's no reason, we got to get going. So is there such a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Michael. Second by Vivian. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? So ordered. In anticipation of the Board of Selectmen approving the request, we'd like Tim and Dan to work on sourcing a consultant as soon as possible, so we can get this thing going. And
Yeah, three of our on-calls have engineers on their staff that specifically do this, so we'd probably reach out to our on-call engineers.
and I'd be happy to help when you design the study, having been involved in it for quite some time. Anyone else want to help design it? No? Okay. If you do,
Should we volunteer Mr. Jack Kelly?
well, we voluntold him one thing already, so I don't think we should pressure him, unless he wants to.
I'd be happy to review the scope, be involved in review.
That would,
making
that
sure
would be
it's a complete
excellent.
Scope for the capital items.
That would be, that would be great.
Construction background.
So you have some help in scoping. All right. Do we vote?
Yes.
Yes, we did vote, okay. Next, SAA new MOU. At our last budget cycle, for the last two budget cycles, we have put money in called the Deferred Budget Support Reserve for the fire department and the ambulance, which are independent 501c3s, for capital items that they need, subject to their long-term plans. We keep that money in-house until the capital plan that they have for their assets, both the ambulance and the fire department, says it's time to spend, time to buy these capital items. And then, subject to coordination with the town, the items are purchased by the entities, and we reimburse them the cost for those items out of the reserve, because that's what the plan is. We're spending, I think it's $235,000 a year to support the operating budget of the ambulance. And we spent last year, put in this reserve for ambulances and building roofs and stuff for the Ambulance Association. I think it was $168,000, $168,000 the second year. The first year was $160,000. And they've spent all that in loose coordination with the fiscal office in accordance with a memorandum of understanding we have on how that should work. We are not sending the Ambulance Association, no, let me not say it that way. We've decided to send the Ambulance Association 100% of the money they need each year to support their operations, their salaries and their benefits and the total cost of operations. The town is not sending them the money for their capital items to replace their ambulances. Our very good relationships with the association is relatively new, and the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Finance, the last two cycles decided we ought to keep a tighter control on their capital spending than we might. We're now continuing this into our third year of supporting, and I believe, and I've talked to Dan, he believes also, and I suspect Tim believes, it's time for us to have a more formal relationship with the Ambulance Association about a memorandum of understanding about their capital needs, because they are in the same order of magnitude in annual support that their operating expense is. We're going to be spending around $250,000 for both capital and operating for the Ambulance Association. That's a lot of money. And we ought to have we think we ought to have a more structured relationship. So we have talked to the town attorney about it, and he is drafting a memorandum of understanding so that the town's interest in all these assets that we are buying, we are funding for them, because that's what this money goes. They don't have any money every year to replace ambulances, replace roofs, fix sidewalks, all the capital things that need to happen, all their equipment. They don't have any money at all, and the town's buying it through this process. And we think it's appropriate for the town to be sure that the taxpayers' money we're sending them inures to the benefit of the taxpayers in whatever future the Ambulance Association might have. So I think this was an explanation to tell you guys and gals, excuse me, an old guy, it's old guys, sorry. When you get old, things like that happen. I hope no one's offended. Thank you. We hope you guys need to understand this relationship we have with them, and that the town is safeguarding the interests of the taxpayers' money spent on capital items in a 501c3. So I prattled on. Does that make sense to anybody, or not make sense? Or Dan, that's pretty much what we're trying to do?
Yeah, that's accurate, John.
I think the town attorney has said he's going to have something for us by, was it the end of the month? We did have a meeting with the town attorney, and he understands this, he agrees. He's got to do a lot of due diligence about how nonprofits work in relationship to this kind of financial dynamic.
What's the difference between, say, them and the fire company, the fire department?
Well, they're both 501c3s. In the fire department, the town owns the ambulances, the firehouses, the equipment. We own what we pay for.
And the buildings.
And the buildings.
In the buildings, except for one, which was donated, and that's an outlier. The Ambulance Association, we don't own any of those assets. They do. So it's a very, very different legal relationship. And this memorandum of understanding would place us in the same position as if they were the fire department. So if something were to happen to the Ambulance Association, those assets would, quote, be ours. That's the guts
John?
of this thing.
Just, may I
Yes,
ask
John?
one thing? I sat in at that meeting with John and Dan. One of the things we're concerned about with this is if we continue to fund this capital reserve fund, and something happens to the Ambulance Association, they are required by law to only transfer those assets to another nonprofit, 501(c)(3), or whatever it is. The issue there was, as our attorney, I recall, said, what the Ambulance Association can do is then make a decision, since we don't control that board, to transfer, if it has a problem, its assets to another ambulance association. So all of the assets that the Ambulance Association currently has, that we will have potentially paid for through this arrangement would not go to the town, it would go to someone else.
John, that is certainly an issue the town attorney brought up, and we need to pay attention to, and is one of the things that will be the subject of this MOU, Memorandum of Understanding. Okay. Next,
Is
yes,
any
Jack?
action required by this board?
Not
on this
now.
item?
No, not now. I think at our next meeting, we will probably have a draft of this MOU, which we would recommend to the Board of Selectmen, because they would be the ones who would do this. So, yes, we will
We will review and approve this new MOU.
Yes, that's the purpose of this, yes. I think the Board of Selectmen, because this is 90% a financial issue, I imagine they would like us to say, gentlemen, here's what we think we should be doing as a town. So yes,
Okay.
definitely, we're reviewing it. Next, Mike. Microsoft licenses. Talk to us.
So I attended a best practices for boards of finance put on by the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities, the CCM, and they had a panel discussion from FOIA attorneys. One of their recommendations, which I forwarded to John and Dan, and I think Tim as well, was no town business should be done using private email addresses. Now, this is the best practice. This doesn't mean it's the only practice. When we have our Board of Finance emails, like, for example, when you email the Board of Selectmen, it's, Selectman O'Neill, Selectman Betty, Selectman, et cetera. They have their own town of Southbury -ct.gov or whatever addresses. We don't have that right now. So when we send out our emails, for here's the minutes, here are the materials, when Betsy sends those and stuff, there is potentially a bad practice there, because if there's ever a FOIA issue, if there's ever litigation for something, that was kept from the public, now all of a sudden, like, my email address, mpcarrington@gmail.com, could then be subject to discovery. It could be very onerous for us as individuals and onerous for us as a town to potentially defend. These are worst case scenarios, just to be clear, but we do it for the Board of Selectmen. I don't think we do it for other boards, but it did occur to me, and that's why I brought it up to John. Should we in fact be doing it for our Board of Finance people? So, it'd be like S. Giacomi at Finance or whatever. It's something we don't necessarily need, but again, it was a best practice. I don't know, just throwing it out there for discussion.
I got this, and I asked Dan, because we don't have an IT director now. I asked
We have one
Dan
starting
if-
on Tuesday.
Say again?
Our new IT director starting on Tuesday.
Ooh, well, that's a good thing.
Yeah, so.
Well, he wasn't here to ask when we did it. So what we said was, gee, are there other issues like, what's the cost? Is there licenses involved? If we do this from our homes, if we were to send along an email that we got from some outside source that had an attachment that we opened at home and went to send it on to the town, and we don't have the same screening software stuff. I'm not a tech guy, you can tell.
Filter.
What?
Filter.
Filters, right. We don't have the same screening filters that the town does. Is there an issue there or not? So I asked Dan to look into that. So Dan, what have you found out?
There's not too much of a risk from the email because it's on a separate server outside of our town hall. There is a risk, though, of clicking a link that might have some sort of a virus on it, shutting down a town email. I was going to wait for our IT director to start to talk to him about it, to see what he would think would be the best practice here. And the only other issue would be the cost, because there is a cost for every Microsoft license that we have, and I don't know if we have that many available right now.
What would it, let's see, we have, 9 board members?
Depends on the type of licensing, so there's different cost structures. We used to have them for our selectmen, and it was funny, we were buying the lowest cost for the selectmen, and they were realizing they couldn't get any attachments. I think they discovered that many years ago, so we had to buy a bigger license for them, so we had to figure out the type of license also.
And, having experienced some of this, there's more cost besides the license.
Such as, okay.
Well, such as, managing all the stuff around the, around the use of that email, right?
This is your field of expertise, so we're gonna listen to you.
So for instance, I don't know, I mean, are we gonna remotely log, I mean, are we gonna remotely log in to the server to use
I
that?
would think, however, the Board of Selectmen does it is pretty much the model we would use.
You could put it on your
Whatever issues
phone
they have, we would have. Whatever
Phone.
benefits they have, we would have.
or an iPad or your computer, you could put it in.
And so we
You
just,
just go into the Exchange server and log in.
okay, and, so then, but that requires no more, this is again an IT question, how much more support do you need to support that many more people doing that kind of stuff, right? And, I mean, that's one issue. The other issue is the one you said, which is, but I guess, do you do already kind of, regular education for the selectmen about how to use this stuff?
I don't know if we do it for the selectmen. For town hall employees, I know we do phishing tests and things like that and pen tests just to see if anyone does click that, and then we do education based on that. So I don't think we do it for the first, do you know if we do it for the Board of Selectmen? I don't think we do.
Why don't we do this? We got a new person coming.
Yeah.
Could I ask Tom, could you and Dan and the new person look into this, and we'll put it on the agenda for our next meeting? We'll carry this thing over till our next meeting,
Yeah.
okay?
Put together a list
Good.
of things.
Pension budgetary funding. For the last 3 meetings, we've talked, starting November, December, January, we've talked about what the pension funding algorithm should be. Dan, I think, has come to a recommendation, which is in the budget, which you will have access to. And Dan, you want to share with us why you're recommending that for our approval?
I recommended the 12-year option, just based upon the amount of funding that was required, which was slightly lower than the 10-year, but the payoff was pretty much the same to get to 100% funding. So I think it may have added a year or 2 on there, but I think the 12-year probably gives us, as long as we stay with the 12-year, will give us the best option.
I'm just wondering what the
This is
lines
something,
are.
this is something I sent at the last minute, because I was trying to make sense of it financially, okay?
Okay,
And I went back and forth about the columns, okay? But what 10-year, 12-year, and 15-year show is the all-out payment for input into the pension, okay? Based on the 10-year plan, the 12-year plan, and the 15-year plan.
what are the various lines?
What?
What are the various
I
lines?
said the years.
Oh, those are the years, but they don't show, okay,
Yeah, it's like, those are the consecutive years, okay?
okay.
So I wanted to just get a sense of what was the real financial trade-off, right? And so that's the 10-year, the 12-year, and the one that says 15 years, the 15-year.
Oh, is this your worksheet?
Yes, my
Oh,
worksheet.
okay,
Okay.
okay.
I just
now-
did it, I actually did it about an hour ago, okay? Because I was so sick of kind of trying to compare the different tables that I did it, right?
So the column H, savings 10 is,
Okay, so the first column F is the 10-year versus the 12-year.
right?
So that's saying that if we're doing the 10-year now, right? If we adopted the 12-year, we would save that much money up until, for the first, X years. But then the reason why I put 0 in 10-year is that, again, I was a little fixated on this, but it's kind of, after I've been thinking about it, I can see why 12-year makes some sense, I was thinking, well, geez, if we get down there and we get 100% funded, we don't have to fund it at all, okay? So, so that's where 100% funding kicks in. If I put zeros in where 100% funding starts kicking in for the 10-year, right? So I figured if we're over 100% funded, we don't have to fund it at all. Where what the 12-year or 15-year do is they save us money kind of upfront, but then push out the time to 100-year funding, 100% funding. Now, at first, I had a kind of negative reaction to that, but actually, after thinking about it, I sort of like it, and I'm almost thinking maybe we should even adopt the 15-year if we're going to do this now, because we're close to 100% funding, and this is going to jigger around every year anyway, depending on what happens in the market and stuff. But we don't want to be, according to everybody I've heard, we don't want to be 100% funded. So if we're close to 100% funded, we don't really, it's not really a good thing to get down there to zero. And so it's better to kind of push it out in the future. Maybe it's better to push it out in the future even more to 15 years.
So it would seem, a couple of things. First of all, every year we look at this. So every year for the next forever, we keep looking at it. So we probably wouldn't get to the line 12, 13, and 14 situation because we would keep looking at it. I think the key difference here is the last column where the difference in the savings from the 12 versus the 15? Is that what that's
That's the
difference?
15, so 10 versus, the last one is 12 versus 15.
There's
yeah.
12 versus 15. So,
So 15 would save, in 15, we would save all that
Yeah.
extra money. So if
Okay.
we're comparing 12 versus 15, we would save that money gradually, and we would approach, again, it's going to go all over the place, like you said.
yeah,
depending- But we would, the idea would be, we'd be approaching, since we're pretty close to 100%, closer than most people and pretty conservative, right? We would save that money and approach 100 much more gradually.
so let's see, there's two things. There's money coming out of the budget and there's money coming out of the reserve fund. They're two different pieces. This is just the budget part?
I just put them together.
Okay.
The total contribution.
Okay, total contribution. What's interesting is, I guess the decision for us is, do we want to take a little bit of savings consistently over time, which is the saving 12 column, or do we want to take the big savings right away with the 15 versus the 10 and open ourselves up to later years issues?
John, just one question, and for Tom too. Do these numbers include both the police?
Yes,
Yes,
town
total.
yes,
employees?
it's the combination.
Now, we have two completely diverse groups there, because the town employees are going to sunset as far as participation. The police will not sunset.
Yeah,
And I think when we look at this, we need to at least consider that within the purview of any decision that is made, because the police fund will continue to, to accrue over a long period of time, because the town at one time
Right.
changed to a defined, defined contribution plan, and we're not funding the pension of a lot of new folks.
well, I agree with that too, and the tricky thing about that, I think, is that, I really feel like we should separate the two. We got to separate the two sometime. It's going to cost a little bit of money, but we got to separate them, because we would just manage them differently, I think. But another option, even an abstract, and partly because of that, and particularly with regard to the town one, is to start to even pull the rate down even further, so that we so that we can manage it more conservatively and use some of the money we have here to do that. So we get to a point where if the rate gets to a certain level, we can just annuitize it. But that's a whole separate topic.
That's a different
That's a whole
discussion,
different
which we will
topic.
get to.
But my point is the illustration of this choice is really, like, if we wanted to just get there and, reach 100%, and then we would have, nothing, again, it's going to bop around, but we might have a lot of years where we have to put zero into the pension.
Well, the actuary has shared with us, does this, she says, the 10, we shouldn't do the 10. She's recommending we do the 12 or the 15, I
No, she
think.
didn't, we did.
Okay?
Jack had told her to do that.
There's an aphorism in the stock market that says, the bulls and the bears get slaughtered. No, the pigs get slaughtered and the bulls and the bears make money. So using that as a guiding star on this, if we can gradually take some money and not try to go full bore and save a lot of money really quickly, my preference is to be in a path that
Yes.
saves us a little bit of money
And
all
I-
the time.
I agree after I thought about it a bit. Okay, and so the real question to me is, do we want to just push it out as long as we can? I don't want to change every other year, right? So if we're going to push it out, I think I'd rather do 15 than 12.
Well, I would imagine we wouldn't be changing it in the next 4 or 5 years.
That's what I mean, so I don't want it, so
So we wouldn't be, and the saving 12, which is the more gradual saving path, the bulls and the bears analogy. And I think that's what Dan came up with when he was looking at it from how much money are we going to, should we take out of the budget, how much money should we take out of the undesignated general fund every year, and not burden ourselves with a,
But the savings 12 there, though, just represents 15 versus 12. Okay, that's what the savings 12 is. So if there's kind of a,
and I don't,
If we dig into that number a little closer, though, the savings from the budget between 12 and 15 is about $7,000. Where the difference is what we're taking from the unassigned. So the difference in unassigned might be about 40.
okay, let's do this. Let me work with Tom and this concept, this way of looking at it, because we haven't looked at it that way. And it doesn't look at everything we need to pay attention to, which is the allocation between the general fund and the other pieces, the general fund and the unassigned.
right.
That gets into it. So why don't we continue? We've still got time. Dan's made a recommendation. I don't know which one of these it is now, but he's got a recommendation he thinks we use, which is based on the 12.
I recommend.
What's in the current budget?
12.
Well,
Right. It's not worth arguing about then, I mean, but,
You want to leave it in 12?
sure, leave it at 12.
We'll leave it at 12. Okay, fine.
you want a motion?
Yeah, I guess we should. Yeah, thanks you, Jack.
Move to shift from the 10-year schedule to the 12-year schedule
Is there-
on the pension funding.
Funding. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Steve. Further discussion? Yes, Steve.
Thank you. I just think, John, it's important, we've talked about this several meetings now, that we make sure, and I think it was mentioned, I forget, was it John last meeting, that this is, or maybe it was Tom, if we do this, this is not something that we want people to think, well, next year we'll revisit, and in 10 years, we're doing this year, and we're kind of leaving it alone, and this is the plan for the foreseeable future,
Right.
so that the rating agencies and everyone knows that, we've thought about this, it's been deliberated, we have a good rating, we have our reserves, we're not making this decision lightly. So I just think it's important to make sure that's on the record.
Good point.
I agree.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? So ordered. Internal audit. Our internal auditor has retired. He works for
Everybody else apparently.
CLA.
CLA, which is, Dan tells me, one of our town auditors. They have a separate division that does internal audit, which is entirely different from audits. Accountants understand that, us mere mortals don't, and that's okay. CLA is, I understand, one of the largest municipal accounting firms in the country. They are a gold standard, and probably it's important that someone like CLA do our internal audit. It's another little gold star, which on the margin lets us keep that AAA rating, which is worth money. Once we get our Middlebury counterparts to get it, that'll a benefit to the school with their $100 million bonding, and then some real money will accrue to the taxpayers. Different story. So we've got to have, we need a new internal auditor. So I guess, Dan, we should talk to CLA, or do you think we probably could use someone else, another recognized firm? Should we be putting this thing out on RFP, you think?
I think we should write an RFP for internal audit services and put it out and see. CLA can certainly bid on it, and they probably will. But see what other firms are out there. We've been with CLA for a number of years, so it might be a good idea to have someone else take a look at it.
Okay. So where do we get a RFP?
We'll get it.
Who dreams that up?
I'll pull a copy from the GFOA, and then I'll tweak it to Southbury and send it to our attorney and send it to members of this board to look at as well
Okay.
before we go out with it.
Terrific. Okay, so we're going to do that. Also, John Riley has shared with me that he certainly wants to continue in the offering his experience to our internal audit function. It's also time to get someone like Steve to volunteer, excuse me, volunteer to serve as our internal audit working group. As a business teacher, I understand he's available late afternoons for meetings, so we can arrange internal audit meetings to be late afternoon, Dan? Is that?
Whenever you guys are available, I can be
Whenever Steve
available.
wants to do it, okay.
Weekends, Saturday, Sunday, it doesn't matter.
choices are.
So we'll have, Dan and Steve will participate with this selection process, have to make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen, and I guess we hire the auditors, so we would hire the internal auditors. So
hires the auditors, yes.
they'll make a recommendation to us. We should try to keep this moving, because we might miss a year, just because the guy retired and we're a little late in starting, and they would probably want to do a definitive study like we did 10 years ago when we took this on, or 15 years ago, whenever it was. So, Dan, if you could
Absolutely.
add that to your list of things, thank you.
And we got, it was too late to put on the agenda, but we got the new 3-year fee for CLA for the town audit as well, and I forwarded it to you, John.
So
Today.
we have it, they
We
have
just got it, yeah,
We just got it?
yeah.
Okay, well, we will certainly talk about that. And let's keep for our next meeting under new business, let's do auditors. We have our auditors for this cycle engaged, correct?
We do.
So we'll have to talk about what we're going to do about is it time to put this thing out to bid, what the economics are, change? We'll talk about it at our next meeting, so we'll put that on the agenda.
John, just
Okay.
one point, since we have a lot of new people here, you might want to, or Dan, comment on how few towns in the state of Connecticut actually have an internal audit program to monitor the quality of their internal controls.
As an aside, I think there are 10 out of the 160 towns in the state, 10 have an internal audit function. In many ways, we are unique in a lot of things we do. We're trying to stay out of trouble and be a best practices town fiscally in everything we do, our purchasing, our financial, our accounting, everything we do, we want it to be the best it can be. And so Dick Hill started this internal audit thing, I guess 15 years ago. He was looking at the statement, talking to the auditors, and they said, oh, we don't look for fraud or your processes. We'll do a little test, but we don't look at that. And Dick was outraged. But that's the way it is with these auditors all over the country. So we decided that that wasn't good enough for Southbury. We were going to go the next step and institute internal audit in addition to legally mandated audited financial statements. Okay, next, Senior Center Director. This one showed up on the agenda. In looking at the budget, I didn't see anything there. What's all this about?
Hello. Thank you for letting me speak tonight. I'm joined by 2 members of my senior commission. So I'm here tonight to ask for immediate funding for a 20-hour part-time employee for the senior center. This part-time employee would handle routine customer-facing duties, such as answering phones, processing payments, welcoming new members, and setting up daily program equipment. Currently, the front counter coverage is handled by our 3 full-time staff, whose primary responsibilities extend far beyond these routine transactions. Each time we are pulled away from our core duties, productivity slows, critical work is delayed, and inefficiencies are created. Over time, these inefficiencies can translate into backlogs, staff and public frustrations, and increased costs. This person would be the first face of the senior center. Seniors would benefit from shorter wait times, consistent coverage, and a more responsive experience. This is especially important when we consider our senior community. Many seniors rely on in-person assistance, may need a little extra time or clarification, and value patience in personal interactions. A dedicated counter person helps ensure that they are not rushed, overlooked, or left waiting because staff are juggling competing responsibilities. Last year, we hit a milestone, 1,000 members, ending the year with 1,083. Our membership is annual, so technically each year we start over again at 0. As of today, we have 760 members. We have more members today, the second week of February, than we did the entire year of 2022. Ultimately, approving this position is not just about operational efficiency, it's about how we serve our senior community. With membership and program participation steadily increasing, isn't it time our staffing structure reflects the growing needs of the seniors we serve? Thank you.
Question, who does this work now?
Our 3 full-time staff.
These staffing, requests for staffing usually come through the Board of Selectmen and the first selectman. What's your thought about this, Tim? We don't know whether or not it's needed. Is it necessary? Is it nice? What's going on here?
I don't know that either, being on the job
Okay.
for a couple months, but I would probably defer that question to Dan, who's a little bit more involved.
What we did, John, we wanted to get the funding in place before we went through the process of going to the board with all of the stuff. So if the Board of Finance was to say, you know, we don't feel this is a position we're gonna fund, then we wouldn't need to even go to the Board of Selectmen. It would be a non-starter.
This really is a chickens and eggs things. The Board of Finance, as you can see from benchmarking, and the 5.7 increase in the budget we had last year, that we had to cut positions and get it down to 3+, and we're looking at 4% now, with some a few small additions. I don't think the Board of Finance is in any position to decide if this is essential or it's nice to do. An increase in the quality of the offering of the senior center versus something that we really need to do. And I would imagine until we find out from whoever makes those decisions, because it's not us, whether we should handle it. Mike?
Yeah, I mean, I think everything you said is well-received. I think it all makes sense, but purely as a Board of Finance function, I'm very hesitant for us to get involved in human resources decisions. That's really, hiring decisions are for the Board of Selectmen. And I get the chicken and egg situation, but I feel if we were to like approve that money, that would be us putting our thumb on the scale. And if we say no to that money, that's also us putting our thumb on the scale. And I don't want to be on that scale. I think that was part of the problem last year. So I would defer to the first selectman, the Board of Selectmen, just purely looking at the separation of functions, separation of powers.
So
Do we even know what the money is? I haven't heard, have we heard, do we have a number in mind that you're looking for? Oh, I'm sorry if I wasn't paying close enough attention. All I heard was I'm looking for funding for a 20-hour employee, how much would that be?
I think like a rough estimate would be about 30,000.
About,
Give or
about
take.
between $30,000 and $32,000 to get someone at the level that we would probably want to be looking at.
Okay.
The
And that's
question, the
inclusive of
question
any
I would,
benefits and
I would
anything else?
have for everyone on the board here is, what metrics would you be looking for to fund a position like this? Now, I would suggest that we would get, okay, Andrew, we have 700 members now, but how many members more come to the senior center every day than last year at this time? Like on Monday, do we have 50 more people? Tuesday, do we have 80 more people? If
We
can
average
get
about
those
100 a day.
more than last year?
I'd say so.
Okay, can we get that metrics from the Schedules Plus?
Mm,
Okay, that'd
absolutely.
be great if we can get that.
Do you have the ability to look at some database and look at those numbers?
Absolutely.
I think that would be essential. You got to get those to Tim. I'll get you in a second, Steve. To Michael's point about putting our thumb on the scale, we did tonight put our thumb on the scale about something like the infrastructure thing, asking the Board of Selectmen to approve something. Well, that's something we really know about. Those things that we don't know anything about, to Michael's point, we shouldn't be putting our thumb on the scale. So, thank you for that. Steve, you would have thought?
Yeah, notwithstanding the comments that I think I tend to agree with, regardless of chicken or the egg, which way the Board of Selectmen goes, Dan, is it safe to say, since, you're kind of already involved in this, that you've identified a funding source if it were to be approved? Savings from the Public Works Director's salary? I don't know.
We would probably be looking at a couple options. I can't specifically say where we'd pull the funding from. Like everyone has said, this was a really tight budget year. Next year is going to be another tight budget year. But we could find it if we looked in other areas, maybe contingency or things like that, to transfer it out. But that's something we have to look at
To
as
your
we get
point,
approval.
we can always find, for something that really we need to do right now, one time, $30,000, that's what contingency's for, to do something. Once we put a job position in the structure, well, then it gets into the whole budget structure, and it becomes a
Oh, no, I
taxpayer
understand.
budget thing.
I get that. I'm just sort of thinking, she had mentioned immediate funding and, it sounds like an immediate need or perceived need, however you want to say it. If it were immediate, obviously we'd have to identify the funding in the current budget. And, there is a discussion that could be had as far as funding it immediately, seeing how it goes. If it's, okay, this person isn't actually doing what they thought they'd be doing, if there isn't a benefit, then it doesn't get put into the next budget. But I guess really the reason I asked was, and again, I don't try to assume anything or put words in Dan's mouth, but, I doubt he or anyone else would have brought this forward if they weren't, already saying, well, we probably could find that if we needed it. Let's see what the Board of Finance thinks. That way we're not having a discussion about something that we can't even fund.
Yeah, the way this would work if there wasn't an immediate need is Andrea will put it in her budget, and it would be discussed in the February meetings, and the Board of Selectmen would decide if they want to move it forward to the Board of Finance. But Andrea's come and said there's an immediate need. That's why we wanted to get you guys in and see how we could get approval for a funding source to get there.
So, I guess it's really, is it two questions and or two discussions? Can we, do we, is it our putting our finger on the scale? Do we want to hear from the Board of Selectmen first as far as the immediate current budget year? And then, is this something the first selectman, we, whomever the town wants built into budgets on a going forward basis? We could do one and not the other, but I wanted to make sure, I'm on the same page with everyone else.
Is this request currently in the 27 budget proposal?
It's not in there, so if we added it, we would add the transfer this year and then add it back into the budget, so it'll be net effect 0 to the budget request.
But there's two considerations then. One is, do you want to add this into your budget proposal for next year? And then the second is, do you want to accelerate that into,
We could
what would practically be a couple or 3 months of this year by the time you get somebody hired and on board?
Yeah, we could certainly add it in and then have the discussion, but the reason why we didn't is only because it was the immediate need for it right now.
Tim, I think the Board of Selectmen ought to make a decision that this position needs to be in the town senior department, period. And you have to find that somehow from data or whatever.
Right, so
And
that's what we're gonna need
So
from
you'll,
Andrea.
you'll work on that. Okay.
Well, Andrea will work on that.
We'll look
She'll-
forward
she'll
to
get-
something at our next meeting. We will look forward to something.
Okay.
So we'll carry this item to our next agenda? Okay.
Thank you very
Andrew.
much.
Thank you.
Social services, funding new position.
Now, this is
What's all
what I
that
bel-
about?
This is what I believe the board voted on their last meeting, that our social services director said with the amount of things that we're dealing with right now with heating assistance, energy assistance, renter's rebate and things like that, she would need some help in her office because she's really here 3 days a week, I believe. So this would be able to get someone here 5 full days to handle these issues that we have for social services.
I make the same,
Currently, Mary is 25 hours a week, so she's just part-time right now. Our director, social services director.
Social services director.
I don't, I have the exact same questions. Is this essential? Do we need it? Has the nature of the job changed? Has the volume changed? Are there metrics that demonstrate we have a 3% increase over last year, or a 30%, or something in between, or?
Well, and in this case,
It's a Friday issue.
is this a seasonal thing too, in this case, I guess? You know, is it something that is all year round, or is it something, you know?
I think we're seeing, or I think in speaking with Mary, we're seeing an uptick in the need for social services. So that's why when she had come to us about this was something that we wanted to put forward because there was a need. There was a definite need to have more hours in that office.
Okay,
Dan,
and
was this a full-time position prior to Mary?
It was started as a full-time position. When Mary came on, with Mary's schedule, she can't work full-time. So there is a need for a full-time support in that staff. And Mary came to us and said what she feels she needs to get the full-time support would be having this person.
So this would be a second part-time position?
Yes, in that office would be.
Again, well, there is history, and if we used to have 35 hours a week, that's something. And if we cut it back and now it's not working, maybe, I don't know if that's the case, but I think the first selectman's got to, quote, get a finding that, yeah, we've looked at the history and the documents indicate that the volume and the need is there. We don't have that from the Board of Selectmen.
well, and is this the same situation as the last time, in that it's a problem with this year's budget, or is this again a proposal for next year's budget? And if it's a proposal for next year's budget, I'm waiting for February, right? If it's for this year's budget, then that's a whole different discussion, I guess.
Yeah, this is another one that, the department head has come and said it's an immediate need. They don't think waiting would be helpful to July 1st to fill this position.
We would take two different paths depending on funding, depending on what the Board of Selectmen thinks is the need for the town. If we need this support all year long for this function, and it's essential, it's not nice, it's essential, because we're down to that, I'm afraid. That's one thing. If they've got a temporary problem because of the cold, because of, I don't know, you could dream up all reasons why it might be temporary or permanent. You got to tell us what we're looking at here, okay?
Yeah, I'll get some data from her.
So we'll keep this on the agenda also for next week?
Yep.
The thumb on the scale thing.
Well,
yeah, I mean,
presuming that the selectmen have taken action.
Right, I mean, it did say
They take
subject,
action after they take action.
right. It says, upon Board of Selectmen approval, we'll request Board of Finance allocate funding. Again, we let them, again, clear differentiation of roles. All these are great things. I'm not opposed to them at all. It's just, I want the Board of Selectmen to weigh in.
Right, well, and I don't know, this whole kind of pre-approval process is not, I don't think that's gonna fly. And we're not gonna, I don't think as a Board of Finance, we sort of pre-approve things in this way. If you guys think it's a good idea and say it's essential, we'll kind of, I guess, find money for it somewhere, you know?
So I'll get that information from both directors and bring it to the Board of Selectmen, and we'll vote on it then.
Something is occurring to me as I think about the history of when the Board of Finance has, quote, paved the way with a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen that, yeah, if you find this is necessary, we think there's funding. We usually, I can't remember every instance, but we usually do that when this is something that is a fiscal thing, not a labor-related quality of service thing. We really need to keep our finger off the scale when it comes to determining what really are the needs. This is sort of, because we do that a lot. We do say, yeah, the Board of Finance believes that you should be doing this and there is money to do it. We have a rich history of doing that. But I don't think it's ever in labor areas where someone's got to make a determination, yeah, this job is necessary. So, okay.
So, sorry, everyone, that's my fault, because I thought the Board of Finance would allocate the funding, and then we go to the Board of Selectmen, but
Yeah.
we'll take care of that.
We have done that a lot, yes. Okay, First Selectmen's report.
Yes, so the First Selectman budget was recently released to the Board of Selectmen, and there was a 4.09% increase. Tax collection is right at 96%, so they're doing well there. Our Public Works, the number of storms and storms on the weekend have hit our Public Works Department very hard with overtime. RFPs have been issued for repairs to the 2 parks that were vandalized. Hopefully, the majority of the repairs will be funded by the insurance claim made. And if the perpetrators are found, the insurance company will certainly subrogate against them. Connecticut OSHA is doing a consultation with our Public Works Department on Wednesday of this week, checking all town buildings for compliance. The feedback on repairs that need to be made will require the town to comply. Cost is unknown at this time, if any. Public Act 490, last October, the state of Connecticut did revaluation of farmland. The initial land assessment values set would have increased local farmers' taxes some 200 to 300%. On January 15th, I met with 3 local Southbury farmers concerned about the proposed increases. The meeting was productive, and I assured them at the town that our local government would be supportive in reducing the proposed increases. Fortunately, Governor Lamont reconsidered the impact these increases would have had on farming and reinstituted the 2020 land values. There are ongoing efforts to cap this in the future and provide more representation for farmers in the valuation process. Having worked on the training school farm in my youth, I understand the importance of farming, and I will continue to support our local farms in the future. I did have my first coffee with the First Selectman on January 27th at the Senior Center. It was a great opportunity to connect with Senior Center members and listen to everyone who attended. It was a great engaging conversation and questions. The next Senior Center Coffee with First Selectman is scheduled for February 17th. Seating is limited and sign-ups are required. The need for additional counterperson was discussed then. Senior Center also is most likely putting in for this position for next year. Whether it warrants needs to be determined. Southbury was awarded a 310 grant for a new 12-bus passenger bus. Senior Center Director Andrea Corian attended the CT DOT meeting regarding transfer of the bus. On January 21st, this new addition will be a valuable addition for our seniors to help with transportation reliability. I was also invited to tour the Gyre 9 facility here in Southbury. The company's located down on Main Street South. They fabricate numerous items for prototypes and produce EV car chargers. We are gathering information right now for estimates for possibly installing EV chargers at town buildings. Hopefully, state and federal funding is available. It was a pleasure meeting all the staff and the owners. And the Economic Development Director, part-time position for 10 to 15 hours per week. We're looking to hire a consultant, so directly responsible for tax deductions on their own. And if it works out, it can, or if it doesn't work out, they can easily be terminated. So hopefully, we will get a part-time Economic Development Director shortly. And that's all I have.
Two things. On the bus grant, that's a grant that we're supposed to,
You guys already approved it.
we already approved it?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. And on the budget process, I think we mentioned this at our last meeting. Everyone in the Board of Finance has access, you'll get it if you don't have it, to the website. In the past, Tim, we have had any member of the Board of Finance who has questions or concerns to submit them to Dan so he could hopefully clear up misinformation or things that are obvious that need to be taken care of. And for things that might lead to a deeper understanding, Dan would talk to the first selectman to have the department heads show up at the meetings. That's our,
Yeah, we're scheduling similar to last year. We're gonna have all of our department heads come one night. So it's gonna be, out of the 4 nights that week, there'll be a number of department heads coming each night to answer questions that anyone of the board may have.
so my question is, I think we've told the board members, please follow that process. Do you want us, now that you've published the budget, do you want everyone to communicate to Dan, or do you want it to come to you, or what's your preference?
I would prefer that it went to both of us, actually.
Go to both?
Dan, I'm sure, would be able to
Okay.
answer most of the questions on his own. But yeah, I'd like to be in the loop.
Terrific. And then whatever those responses, you'd see the responses. That makes a lot of sense. So, folks.
It's about a 4% increase, which I think inflation was about 3%. So
Yeah,
it's a tight budget. We went over all the numbers with the department heads already, so I'm sure there's going to be some pushback on a few things, but
You know, if we look at the budget, like Tim said, it's tight. You know, our insurance, unfortunately, is going up 8%. That's even after negotiating it. So, and our medical insurance right now, we're budgeting at 13%. We're hoping to stay within that number, but I talked to a couple of other towns, and we're well within where everyone is. So 15 to, some are a little higher, some are a little lower, but we think that's where we're going to be. And those are the bulk of our increases. You know, we really haven't done anything that I would say is out of normal, what we've normally done. It's just those costs have just been getting away from us. And, you know, our experience rating, of course, is going to go up next year because of vandalism in the park and things like that. So when we look at these things, that's where the bulk of our increases are. It's labor and insurance. So,
Okay.
Dan, John, if I may, a question
Yes,
to
sure.
Dan on budget issues. I mean, with the town at 4, and we start to consider that, I'd like to get, just from Dan, some insight of where Region 15 may be coming in.
we don't have.
What would be the aggregate increase in total tax, okay, including not only the tax, but also the shift of students within the Region 15 body.
Yeah,
So we're at 4, where is the aggregate increase?
We'll have the region's number the week that we have our budget meetings, so that's when they'll finalize theirs as well. for purposes of just doing an estimated mill rate, I put an estimate in our budget. So if you guys look at that estimate, that's only an estimate. That's nothing that we have from the regions. So that's an estimate based upon where I think they're going to be, based upon inflation and things like that.
But it includes us losing the lottery, is that right?
We did end up losing the ADM number this year, so it's $1 million shift to Southbury. So wherever that goes, their budget is going to be a $1 million shift to us.
But that's included?
That's included in my estimate, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
And on the Economic Development Director, I mean, one of the issues I think we've always had with that is, what's the role? You know, like, really, have we kind of gotten, or are we gonna toy around with a consultant to figure that out? Or do we have a specific kind of guidance on what's the role, you know, in mind?
Well, certainly, we are going to try to improve the grand list. Being a position that's 10 to 15 hours a week, not really sure what this person can do immediately, but
Well, the biggest thing they could do for me would be define the role, you know, is that I think the role's been sort of all over the place, and so if nothing else, I'd like to get very clear definition of what's the role, right?
well, we left it, the description for the Economic Development Director exactly the same, so we could hire it out for a consultant on a part-time basis. So that description of the economic development is going to stay the same. I mean, obviously, we're trying to build the grand list with commercial and industrial, which is very limited in Southbury. But the number one asset that the town does have is the 200 acres of the Volpe Rosen property. So I've been working with a couple realtors that have actually shown some interest in the western portion of the property, so hopefully we can get some of that cleared out to see how viable it is to develop it. I don't know what their intent is or who their client is at this point, but that would be certainly something that the EDC director would be working on. And I think as a town, we're losing a lot of funding in state and federal grants, so hopefully that person would also be working on that on a weekly basis, so.
We look forward to the job description. Okay, anything else? Any questions from members of the Board of Finance for the first selectman? Dan, cell tower?
Yeah, so this is going to affect our budget as well, unfortunately. So Phoenix Tower, who manages our cell tower, we have a deal with them where it's a 90% 10 split for the town. And they came back to us this week and said those numbers are just not sustainable for them. So they'd like to renegotiate that lease with us. So I reached out to our town attorney, and he said this is happening all over the state with all of the cell tower managers. And they came in at 40, and I said unacceptable. They came back at 50%. So we're still working that out with them. I don't know where
50% what?
revenue share.
Revenue share.
Reduction? Or-
Yes.
No. So we're at 90-10 now. They want to go 50-50, so they want to take half of the revenue. So we're still negotiating with them. I don't know where we're going to end up. I don't think we're going to be at 90-10, but we'll see where we're going to end up because this cell network right now is so competitive, and providers are pushing on their end, and they're coming off towers. So
Is the lease up?
no, we just renewed the lease 2 years ago, so
Can we say, no, we like it the way it is?
we can.
Well, they also
then
lost a provider, too.
They lost a provider off the tower as well, so yeah.
They what?
One of the providers came down off the tower, so DirecTV was up there, they're down now.
Dish
so
Network.
that's- Or Dish,
Because
yeah,
there
they
are
came
other
down.
options, other towers for them to go to?
No, they went out of business, yeah. So that's part of the problem, and also it doesn't help when the cell carriers are offering all these free promotions, and now they can't afford to pay to be up on the towers as well, which is another argument they're making. But they sent an email, I forwarded it to everyone, just to let everyone know we are talking with them right now. Where we end up, I don't know yet, but our town attorney's involved, and we're working on it.
Okay.
But it will affect the budget, because we budgeted about $160,000 for cell tower revenue,
We're
And
getting
if-
160 now at,
That's where we get now. at
90%?
Yeah.
so that's what, 180? So we probably go down to 90 at 50/50, a loss of 70,000?
Yeah.
That's not nothing.
No.
Well, and the 2%.
The 2% escalation also, we get 3, they want to negotiate, 3.5, they want to negotiate it down to 2. And coincidentally, they want to extend the lease an additional 5 years on top of it. So
At great terms.
a lot of it doesn't really make sense, so we are still negotiating. I just want to give everyone a heads up that budgetarily, we budgeted at 90, but it may not be 90 as we get into February.
How many years remaining
15,
on the current lease that we
actually
negotiated?
13, Jack, sorry. We negotiated a 15-year renewal.
That they agreed to?
They agreed to it, and now they want to extend that to another 5 years, so
Well, I know, but what's,
At half.
at half.
what's,
You need somebody playing hardball.
Yeah, I was going to say, not that I question your abilities at all, Dan, but I mean, it seems like it would behoove us to have more knowledge in this.
Well, that's why I have our town attorney involved.
Yeah, yeah. Because I feel like we could tell them to pound sand. Of course, if they go bankrupt, well, then we're in a problem. So
We could also sell we could sell the tower, which we had an offer 2 years ago to sell the tower, which wasn't feasible at the time, based upon the revenue share. So that might be another option to look at.
interesting.
Thank you, I think.
what's the,
Review of financial statements. Dan, this is a consent agenda item. Anyone is entitled and offered to pull something out of it you'd like to talk about, but if no one wants to pull anything out of it, we'll move on. Hearing that no one wants to pull anything out of the consent agenda, we'll move on to transfers.
There were no transfers.
There were no transfers. Future business.
Nothing.
We have our
We've talked about a lot of future.
hands filled with future business. There'll be some old business items. Let's go to reports. Tom, IPOC?
Well, I do have
Welcome, Jack.
one follow-up question. It's now been 3 months since we approved that $17,000 for the study on the
Waste
pay,
transfer
pay,
station.
pay to throw at the transfer station. It was supposed to be a 2-month study, although they said it could take a little longer. Have we gotten any sort of update on that?
We're part of the process, Jack, is we have to set up a committee to work on the grant, and I believe Tim is working on, I don't want to speak for Tim, but I believe he's working on putting that committee together, which will be probably a member of this committee, and much like our police chief committee, very similar.
and the time's been pushed. I mean, we don't have, we can push the time on this as much as we want, but, and more than we want, than
Yeah.
was suggested.
It's my understanding we haven't started on the study yet, right?
We haven't started on the
I
study
mean,
yet.
none of the money's been spent anyway.
But we haven't started on the study yet. I think the thing.
Well, it was just approved last Board of Selectmen meeting, and we have 6 months, it's going to be a 6-month review for Phase 1, which is the 17,000. So, and then after,
wait a minute.
then after
We
that,
were
we can.
told 2 months.
Well, I
We
know, but
approved it in
The-
November or
The
December.
way the grant was written, it said 3 months, however, it actually is closer to 6 months.
If I remember correctly, this board approved only accepting the grant and spending the money on the feasibility study to look at the economics of this thing, plus and minus. So while we have approved something, we've only approved the study. So, and I would
No,
encourage you,
no, you guys approved to approve the
Yes.
SMM whole thing. It's in 3 separate phases. The
Excuse
first
me,
phase
Tim,
is the
no.
7.
excuse respectfully, no, we specifically said we will approve the grant only the spending part for the study. Where all the phase 2, 3, and I don't know how many phases there were. We specifically exempt spending money on the further phases from our approval. Because we want to know what the cost is going to be, the upfront costs, and what the ongoing costs and the ongoing revenues are going to be. So we specifically
Well, the $157,000 grant was approved by the Board of Selectmen last board meeting, of which the first phase of the $17,000 portion of that
Yep.
157 is what we're starting with.
That's fine.
Once we get that feasibility study and we study that, then we can determine whether or not to
go
go
to
with
the
phase
second
2 and
phase.
phase 3.
Correct. I'm sorry if I misunderstood. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I would encourage you to have a member of the Board of Finance officially on your study committee. I know if it's Tom, to make sure that our view is included in the raw data you're going to present going forward.
Yep.
Okay, I'm sorry if there's confusion.
It sounds like you don't expect results from the study, the $17,000, until end of the summer?
I would assume it'd be 6 months. Yeah. So
Okay, thank you.
hopefully,
September, maybe.
hopefully we'll get that started.
I won't bring it up until September.
Tom IPOC?
Oh, wait.
I was
Okay,
asking
I'll get
Tom
back to that.
if you wanted another member, sorry.
If anybody else wants to get involved, that's fine. I do know the following, right, which is, we had a good discussion, not formally yet, but I've had a good discussion with Richard Coates, who did it all in Woodbury.
This is the Energy Task Force?
No, this is something he's still talking about the garbage.
Isn't that the Energy Task Force thing? No,
No.
that's the garbage. Okay, we got to change that to garbage.
Maybe we should just have an update on here for future business, put a thing here
Yes,
on that topic, okay? And I'll put my name on it,
yes, let's do that. What do we want to call that? We want to use the right name.
SMMR2.
SMMR2.
SMO2?
SMMR2.
MR2.
And
R2.
R2.
right, like R2D2.
Sounds like a robot.
Okay, thank you,
Okay, but let's just put that on it's for future updates, okay?
thank you.
All right. On IPOC, okay. We didn't have a meeting, we're having a meeting on Wednesday. We did get the year-end, for the meeting Wednesday, we have the year-end numbers. The pension fund was up 8% half-year. The reserve fund was up 3.4% half-year. And the library fund was up 7.6% half-year. So those are all half-year results. If you annualize them, we're doing great. But we'll see what, again, I don't annualize usually quite that
That
much.
would be good enough if it
We-
just stayed like that.
We had a flat January, just so I got the statements for January just this week, so.
Yeah. So, but anyway, fingers crossed, we're doing okay there. And I have a real IPOC meeting Wednesday.
Tom, just to clarify, the word up, gross, or rate of return?
We're up rate of return,
Thank you.
8% for
Yeah,
pension.
because gross would include the extra money we put in there.
Right,
So the rate of return.
yes.
Thank you.
Janet, Board of Education?
Still watching for internal audit results for 24-25. I haven't seen those in the minutes yet. And still watching for their multi-year internal audit plan, and haven't seen that to date either. But their annual audit is in, and it is posted to their website. They had discussed that at their January 27th Finance and Facilities Committee meeting, and there were no material weaknesses or deficiencies noted. The board is moving forward with its plans for a referendum in May for the construction of the schools to replace GES and PES on their existing sites. And I wanted to note that a community group has formed called Region 15 Kids Alliance, and it's formed to advocate for the passage of the referendum. It used to be that regional schools could not have rainy day funds. And I had noticed monies transferred into a fund in the minutes for some time now, and did some research on that. In 2024, CT General Statute 10-5D2 allowed regional districts to establish reserve funds for capital and non-recurring expenditures. The Region 15 fund is called Educational Expense Account. And it used to be that when there was a surplus in the region, after they funded their pension and funded their capital reserves to the maximum that they were allowed, this is money left over from the budget, that they would return to the town. But the town has not been getting any surplus funds back, and this is why. Because this new fund was established by the region based on this general statute. To date, pardon?
Why do they call it that? That's, it seems to me very.
I think they could name it whatever they wanted.
One of the things they do need, as we look at potential building 2 new schools, for them to get to AA1, there's a lot of factors, and one is, all the towns need to be a AAA. The other factor is they do need to have a capital reserve set up, and that's that thing that they're setting up. They're a little low to get to that point right now, so hopefully they can keep building that as they go bonding, because every point get off a $100 million bond is a savings to most of the people, all the people in Southbury. So that, I know that's one of the things that they're trying to build up, to build that capital reserve to get to that level.
Well, their combination of their capital reserve fund and this is a little over $2 million.
Yeah.
Right now, the educational expense account alone is about $649,000 plus.
Well, but I guess I thought that you were saying that the educational expense thing was the capital reserve fund.
That's
No,
what I heard you say.
But they can use it for capital expenses and non-recurring things. So it's a rainy day fund, if what I would call a rainy day fund. They have a lot of flexibility in how they use it. It doesn't seem to be allocated the way their capital reserves are allocated to their different schools.
It's up to
So
them
something
to
to keep-
decide.
Yeah, well, it's something to keep, maybe some questions at budget time. And I didn't see any budget workshops scheduled, so I was surprised to hear that they were going to have their budget finished by when your budget is.
They always usually give us the number the week that we're meeting in February.
Do we have a date with them for our special meeting like we always do?
It's March,
It's on
I
the
don't have a
calendar.
definite date yet, but it is on the calendar. I think it's
There
around
is?
March 25th.
Yeah.
It's usually the last week of March.
Okay.
And that one is at, I believe, 6:30, so everyone starts a 7 o'clock meeting. And sorry, Janet, but just I want to remind John that about the other invite that I sent out today, on Monday, to tour the schools with the Board of Finance members. Just to remind everyone that invite's out, look in your.
Yeah, let's do that right
Inbox.
now. It's the 18th, right?
Yep.
The 18th, what date is that in the week?
Wednesday,
Wednesday, yeah.
Wednesday,
10 to 12,
10 to 12.
starts at Gainfield.
There's, all members of the Board of Finance, do you all get the invite?
Yeah.
Okay, everybody got it, fine. Do we know where it starts yet?
Gainfield.
It starts at Gainfield, okay, 10 o'clock at Gainfield.
And John has said he's buying
Excellent.
everyone lunch at 2 o'clock when the tour's over.
Yeah, he's a nice guy.
So-
Board of Selectmen were also invited for that, and I noticed that
Right.
Representative Bucksbaum and some board members toured yesterday.
So do you have all of their budget workshop dates?
I don't have all their dates yet, no, but I can call Joe tomorrow and see if I can get
No,
those
well,
dates from him.
I was just curious whether the board was invited on the last budget workshop day, or if they were invited earlier in the,
Our board is usually invited that week of February, and it's because we're doing our meetings as well. I think one member of our Board of Finance does go to that meeting in February, but it's because our budget workshops are the same week. I think that's the conflict.
okay, that's all.
Okay, thank you, Janet. Also, I'm going to bring something up. There's a there's probably going to be a referendum question in May on building these new schools. In the past, the Board of Finance has not taken a position on the school budget. We have, and the reason we have not, in my judgment, is the budget is that thick. And there is, and I've shared this reason with the chairman of the school board and the superintendent, there's no way this Board of Finance could become knowledgeable enough about the inner workings of that budget to go to the taxpayers and say, you should vote for this because we feel comfortable that there's no fluff, for all the reasons that we say our budget. We do say that it is open, transparent, it's all there, you can study it, and in that regard, we think it's well-constructed, and you decide. These new schools, also, the school budget is almost three-quarters of our mill rate.
Yeah.
So it's important to us. It's important. The new schools, they're going to be looking for bonding which is going to be significant one-time shot when they put this debt service component in their budget somehow.
Approaching $100 million?
Yeah. For the total bond, how it is scheduled out. But yeah, it is a huge generational expense. I've been wondering if this board should put itself in a position so that we could make a statement about whether or not our taxpayers should vote for it. Unlike, we're not in a position to opine on the regular school budget. And I suspect that this might be different. The fundamental questions as to whether or not we need to build these two schools and what is the right thing to build and how should it be funded, et cetera. I'm beginning to think that that is something in the next 3 months we could wrap our hands around if we were invited to the requisite meetings where those key issues are discussed. Again, so that we would have a deep enough understanding about these new schools, the need for them, what they might cost. So I wanted to have us talk about that. And we need to, if we were to set off in that direction, we would have to set up something with the school board so that we could come to an understanding that we're comfortable enough about the issues so that we could opine. We don't opine on the operating. If we could set up a process where we could understand enough about the building project, would we want to do that for the benefit of the taxpayers? Because they look to us to say, gee, is this the right thing? Should we say yes? So no one has put me up to this. I just dreamed it up myself. No one in the school board has offered this as a path or something they'd like to do. I'm just wondering, our taxpayers look to us for our thinking about the economics of the town. And this is a significant piece. So I don't want to talk about it for just a few minutes. I guess we don't have to decide today, but we certainly would have to decide if we want to do this by March, because then we'd only have 8 weeks to do whatever it would be to come to a decision as to yes or no.
I think we'll know a lot more about how we feel about this after we tour those buildings. I mean, I haven't been in PES for 30 years, so I'm not sure what condition it's in.
Vivian, that presupposes whether or not we would say yes or no. That's not what I'm asking at this point. What I'm asking is, should we work with them to find a path so that we might be exposed to enough information in this, the tour as to whether or not it needs to be done at all, should we repair or rebuild? That's all would come after. My question is, do we want to put ourselves in a position where we would work out a plan with them to come to understand enough about this project so that we would be comfortable enough to draw an opinion?
Can I ask, in the past,
Yeah.
have we ever opined on school construction? Like Long Meadow Elementary School, I think was the most recent school.
No.
Well, it is, but it's still Region 15, which is
Region-
70%
it's
of our
Region
budget.
15.
The most recent project was the upgrade of the high school and MES, and
I mean, if it's not,
not MES.
doesn't mean we'd have to change our precedent. I'm just clarifying. Our precedent is that we've never done that before.
I know we had, I was on the committee that worked on the high school thing. And maybe because we had a representative on the committee, there was an inference that we approved it. I don't know. So officially, we didn't go through this process where the whole board did it. No, we have not done that.
There is one thing that's different at this time. I was on the Board of Ed for both the Long Meadow construction project in the mid-90s and the Pomperog High School and Memorial and Rochambeau upgrades that were right around 2000.
Which board? The Board of?
I was on the Board of Ed.
Board of Ed.
Okay.
In the Finance Committee. This project dwarfs the size of both of those projects. It dwarfs the size of those two projects combined.
Exceeds.
Yeah, like,
By a lot.
No, I know, dwarfs.
Yeah, it dwarfs, he's saying it
Mi-
makes it look really small. what
if
we've done
memory
in the past.
serves me right, we built LMES for about $30 million, Greenfield, including acquisition of the land. And it's a school with a capacity of 600 kids, which is 150 more than Pomperog or Gainfield currently. I don't remember the size of the high school and middle school projects, but I think they were in the 20 or 30 million dollar range as well. And this is a 160, 150, 160 million dollar project, of which something a little less than half.
They're hoping to get back 65%, I believe.
I think it's 65 now with a new statute and the
Has it
daycare.
grown then?
Yeah, yes, the
Oh,
new
okay.
statute.
School program, they're gonna
At
add
one point, it was
96
like
buildings.
48%.
Extra 15% because you're doing preschool programs.
So maybe the nut for the two towns is smaller today, but it's still,
It's 200 million.
it's a big number as you think about the debt service and the repayment, and the payment of the principal over a 30-year period of time, what that means to the municipal budget and the tax rates. So to the extent that we feel a stewardship for the mill rate for the residents of Southbury, I think we have a responsibility to engage and acquire all the information we can get. If at the end of the day, in the next 2 months or 2.5 months, whatever it is, we don't feel we've acquired enough expertise
It always
to
can be worked,
comment,
yeah.
that's always an option.
Yeah.
But I think it behooves us to try to acquire the information and then subsequently make the decision about how we feel about, whether we're gonna voice an opinion one way or the other. That would be my recommendation.
And if you look at just the gross numbers that we know now on the borrowing, excuse me, if you say we're gonna borrow $100 million, and we go into the market, and probably with that credit rating at $100 million, they're probably gonna pay, Dan, 3.5%, 3%? Okay,
Yeah,
we're
three.
talking $3 million a
3.5.
year just in interest. Then you take the amount that they have to pay off in principal and add that to it. and then you look at that as a percentage of the increase, just for that and not operating expenses, that goes onto the taxpayer's shoulders.
It's probably
So
equal to 25% of our municipal budget.
Yeah. And I
As an
think
increase.
we need to get our hands around those
Yeah.
numbers, so at least we know what the impact is going to be on residents here, especially because our always ongoing concern about the amount of senior citizens we have in town, and those folks who are living on, basically a fixed income. And all of a sudden, you get this huge hit all of a sudden.
John,
Just one other comment. I do remember, and I was at least one or two of the meetings that they had with the consultant, and Mr. Michaels made a really, really important, and I thought very astute comment, is that this time, you not only look at the amount, but you look at the period over which you're going to bond this, because if these schools are going to have a 40 or 50-year life, do you just bond it for 20 years, or you then extend it to a longer period of time, because residents will be getting the benefit of those over a period of time, and maybe you can at least ameliorate to some extent the total funding cost of this on an annual basis.
John, you'll be happy to know that the school board, I talked to the chairman, the school board is going to have a special meeting of the two boards of finance and Joe and Dan and Dan's counterpart to talk about funding, just funding. And the mill rates and longevities and rates and all sorts of things. So yes, that is in the works. Are there any other, Jack made a comment,
I agree with Jack's comment. I'm always afraid of the, you broke it, you bought it, kind of thing. In other words, if we go in, after we do Jack's thing, if we go in and endorse something, I don't know, it's one of those things that I wouldn't want to be in their shoes. I don't think there's any kind of rationality that's going to not get everybody slapped. So it's like, so the kind of, the question is do we want to get slapped, even if it's the right thing to do? I don't know. I mean, it's kind of an exaggerated way of saying it, but I'm cautious about of endorsing something of any sort in this space, because even if it's the right thing to do, because it's a lot of people are not going to regard it as the right thing to do.
So personally, I've been very Pollyannish about the responsibilities of the Board of Finance these past few decades. We have always done the right thing, always done the right thing. If some of the people might not like it, well, we're sorry. We'll try to explain to you why we think it's the right thing, but we think it's the right thing. So I understand that. If we lose 3/4 of our friends because of it, well, that's why we got elected, to do things like this. So, yeah.
Not to make friends?
Not to make friends. Michael, I thought,
Well, part of the only issue I have is that at this point, to some extent, the plan is the plan. And I think right now the conversations in the town, certainly that I'm hearing from a lot of people, are, well, why didn't they do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, et cetera? There's 20,000 people in Southbury. There might have been 20,000 ideas. I trust the feasibility study to have done their due diligence. I have a lot of faith in that. But to your point, we don't have the expertise. We weren't on that feasibility study, so I don't know that I feel equipped the same way I don't necessarily feel equipped to adjudicate the Region 15 budget every year to really delve into this, other than to do what you say some years, which is it's well constructed. We don't have the expertise. We weren't at all those meetings. We didn't work with all the experts. And at this point, I feel like we're getting more into a question of selling it to people or not selling it to people. And I'm wary of that, actually. And that's not to say I'm impressed with the proposals. I have young kids in the system. I'm certainly leaning in positive ways. I generally speaking support the schools. Generally speaking support the BOE. But as the Board of Finance, I don't know that, I mean, I'm not opposed to what Jack said, getting involved now, kicking the tires, figuring it out, but, you know, to some extent, there's been a lot of decision-making that we weren't involved in, and we can't put that, like, we can't go back to the table there and say, well, you know, that, like, there's a lot of decisions that maybe we might have disagreed with then, but we didn't have input then. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I just don't quite know. Certainly as individuals, we can endorse things. I don't know if it makes sense for the Southbury Board of Finance or the Middlebury Board of Finance to endorse these things. Obviously, they're going to affect the mill rates. Obviously, these are really important, huge spending issues, but I just don't know that it's necessarily our board. We didn't do the homework, so to speak, and right now we'd be playing catch-up. That's my concern.
I think I'm acknowledging exactly your point. It just so happens that I was on that feasibility study committee, and I do know how they came to their decision and why. What they eventually ended up with is not what the feasibility study committee wanted for a number of reasons. I do think, well, if we could come to a really good understanding of why they decided to do what they've decided to do and get a full understanding of it, then to Jack's point, or my point, I feel obliged to tell the citizens of Southbury, yeah, this is really what needs to be done. You should vote yes. And if they don't, you know, if they vote us out of office next time because they didn't like it, okay.
Okay,
But we did our job.
Are we also prepared to say this is not what needs to be done? You should vote no?
Well, we could take two
'Cause
paths.
well-
We could chicken out, Mike, and say.
I don't see it as chickening out.
No, to be honest. We could, if we decided no, this is not the right thing, we really could decide on its face that we really don't know enough to opine, and therefore we wouldn't have to. That's how we would.
Well, I sort of feel like we're going to end up in that opinion. We're going to do what Jack said, and we're going to end up in that space anyway, because one way or the other.
Could be.
But I do think we should take a kind of almost, use that, what Jack is saying, to be almost the role of internal audit on it, so that in a sense that we can underwrite the process, we can maybe help underwrite that the process was taken, that, you know, or something like that. I don't mean real internal audit, I'm just saying that, like you said, that you want to say, well, we looked at the process and we can at least say that we think the process was done with integrity, whatever we feel about it. Even to say that in this case is a pretty big chunk of mouthful, right?
Other thoughts? New guy. Ouch.
No, I mean, put me on the spot. No, I don't know. I don't know, slippery slope for the Board of Finance, maybe telling people how to vote. I mean, can we fact find, can we dig into it? Can we lay out what it means for everybody? Like, this is, in dollars and cents, this is
Yeah.
what it means, and let people make the decision with the facts.
We certainly would be doing that in
This board
any
is-
event.
This board has always said, vote your conscience when it came to Region 15. So I don't know if they need to opine in here on this one at all, other than say, vote your conscience.
Steve, Vivian?
I feel awkward having that opinion. No matter what we do, we're going to anger somebody.
Yeah,
Because for every group they form to promote the school, I remember Long Meadow was a nightmare. I think it took us 3 votes to get that thing passed. So the community our opinions are irrelevant because the community is going to look at it and let us know. And I have his fears of that big number scaring a lot of people away. So that's.
I'm in a tough spot. And not only are my kids in the system, they go to PES.
Oh,
At least
well-
one of them will still be there by the time, I think, depending on the timeline, one might still be there.
It's going to be 5 years until
Kindergarten,
those
yeah.
buildings
Oh,
open.
He might be in 5th.
He might suffer the consequences of all
I think
5.
he'll
That
be
being
gone.
said, it's the reason why I moved to the town was the schools, but also the cost. The mill rate, the taxes, all the things we talk about around here all the time. So to sit here and say, is there a better way, to your point, I don't know if there's a better, more cost-effective way to put these buildings in the condition that they probably need to be in. You know, to Vivian's point, she hasn't been there in 30 years. I've probably been there 3 times in the last month. And, you know, you walk around, you walk in, yeah, it smacks you in the face. This is an old building. The ceilings are average height, and
The
I like.
ceilings are low on purpose, so
right.
that kids feel.
Correct.
you know. Yes.
But most modern buildings, you know, you get, you walk in and you know right away, wow, this is a building with some history. They do a great job, as far as I know, of my children there, of keeping it up and having it running in a modern and efficient way, but the building itself is not modern and efficient. It's just not. But again, that being said, like we all do in our own homes, we have wants, we have needs, and trying to decipher between the two and the best way to pay for them. Is upgrades of both of those buildings a need? In my mind, it is. Is their plan currently the best way to pay for that need? I don't know.
And that is something that we would try to come to the same level of understanding that the study committee came. Okay, I would propose that we try to find a path to understand what they're suggesting and why, to the level that we as a board can have confidence that, given everything they were faced with, and that, yes, this is the right thing to do. And try to come to that understanding. I'm not saying we can, or that we will, but I think we ought to try. Mike, does that work for you?
Sure.
Okay.
Anything works for me. I'm a
Happy
team
to
player, but
invest the
I
time and
just,
energy.
yeah.
Again?
Happy to invest the time
Time
and energy.
It's a,
Learn more.
it's a big thing for
I'm
us.
happy
see
to
where
go-
it goes.
I'm happy to go down Jack's path. I'm not sure I'm gonna get to the point of saying yes or no.
Okay, all right. We're not presupposing that.
Okay.
We're just gonna
There's
see
no
if we can.
motion.
We're gonna kick the tires, we can tour it, we can keep looking
Right.
into it, keep having these conversations.
So I will share with the chairman over there that we're embarking on this path. We don't know how it's gonna end up, but we want to work with them so that they can educate us to a level that we come to the same understanding with the same level of confidence that they do. And if we can't get there, we can't get there. That's okay. All right? I will, we probably ought to have, this ought to be in the minutes somehow. I'm not sure
Betsy?
how to do that. Betsy?
You copied all that down?
The discussion, see, the minutes should reflect that we discussed
Possible endorsement.
are
No.
willing to study this project to a level so that we might be able to opine as to whether or not it's the right thing. Is that what we're getting at, guys?
Sure.
We're gonna engage with the school board to try to come to that level of understanding. Okay.
You're still gonna have to wordsmith it.
Yeah. Send us
We
the
trust
draft.
you.
Okay, insurance working group, no report. We're certainly dismayed by the level of increase in insurance, but what's happening to us is happening all over the United States, everywhere. Insurance companies, health and property and liability, so.
Did the going out of the self-insurance business, would the self-insurance business would have helped us or not?
We're still below what we would be paying if we stayed with the region,
If we stayed what?
with the region.
Oh, with the region?
Yeah, we're still below that.
Interesting. Roads, Jack, anything?
Couple things. I think Tim and the Board of Selectmen are considering reformation and recruitment of new members for the nascent road committee.
Okay.
But in the meantime, I'm meeting with Matt and Tom and helping them think through, really two things. How to, putting together a structure with some discipline on when to use what method for renewal of road surfaces and at what frequency. We have a internal benchmarking methodology, I forget the name of it. What's the thing we pay for every year, Dan?
iWorks?
iWorks, that does a satellite view looking from up high down on road surface conditions. And 15 years ago, we were at about a 6 or 7 year
Remaining
expected
life.
remaining life in our roads. The Board of Finance, the Board of Selectmen, the Public Works Department dramatically changed our approach to road rejuvenation. And over the last 15 years, that 7-year life has grew to 14 years. Maybe even 14 and a fraction.
Fabulous.
But in the last couple of years, it's slipped a little bit. We're 13 today. And I think 14 is a goal. I don't think anybody wanted to get higher than 14. 14 would put us in the top decile, maybe in the state of
Dan,
towns.
if I might, when we first did iWorks, the gold standard was 12. If you could get to 12, you've done a great job, and
Yeah,
we're at
that predates
14, so
me.
we're
in excess of
we're in excess of the gold, of the
Gold
old gold standard. What the new gold standard is, I don't know.
The limitation of iWorks and the top-down assessment is it doesn't see anything underground. For all of the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and most of the 90s, when most of the cul-de-sacs and neighborhoods were built, the village was built, the other senior care facilities were built, the standard for the town was putting corrugated metal pipe as drainage pipe. I mean, we're septic, so we don't have any sanitary sewers to speak of, but we've got drainage pipes all over the place, because we got a lot of hills. And even where it's flat, you still need, sometimes those are more important for drainage. We're familiar with some of the catastrophic failures due to floods over the last 3 or 4 years on Bucks Hill and Old Waterbury. Anyway, what is emerging, having done a very detailed inventory of the pipes underground, is that there's a lot of work to be done. And the $64,000 question is when and at what speed? It makes no sense to deal with sewers if you're not doing something with the pavement, because you're gonna cut up the pavement, you're gonna do something with the sewers, then you're gonna fix the pavement, and then a couple of years later, you come back and repave it. You don't wanna do that. So that's a long preamble of saying, so we're trying to develop a methodology for thinking about that that's got some structure, and then plugging in all the roads to see what does that mean in terms of a long-term plan. The first cut by the Public Works Department suggested, just to give you a point of reference, that maybe we needed to up our road budget, annual road budget, to like $4.5 million a year.
From 2.5.
From 2.5.
From 2.5.
We've circled the wagons. The 4.5 is not, we're now in agreement, is not required.
That dog don't.
But what's required is probably upping it from the 2.5 to like maybe 3. Or 3.1 or $3.2 million. You know, there's some other things that factor in. The third largest item in the road budget is guardrails. We got a lot of guardrails because we got a lot of hills and a lot of, you know, unsafe slopes on the side of roads. And that, the specifications for guardrails, well, are not the purview of the Public Works Department. There are a number of boards in town that have have a voice on those decisions. So I think that there's a few items that will require some debate and discussion even beyond the Public Works people, but we are making some progress in putting a structure around what kinds of rejuvenation, at what costs, at what points in time, surface and subsurface, that I think will stand the test of time over a couple of decades, and I think meet our goal of being able to clearly understand what is required in total, what the annual ought to be, what we need to have in reserves for the lumps as they come. And maintain that 12 to 14 year, maybe 13 year as a midpoint, road surface condition, for the foreseeable, as far out as we can see. I'm a cyclist, for those of you that, I don't know, Viv knows this. I see all of the roads in town at between 8 and 25 miles an hour. And I can say, without reservation, we have the finest roads within 40 miles of Southbury in any direction. Based on an in-depth survey of the roads.
Cycling them all the time.
Our only fear is chip sealing season, because that's like ball bearings to narrow bicycle wheels.
So when do we get the proposal?
Oh, it's being worked on to validate this year, Tim's budget for this year,
Okay.
and to help us decide what we may need, what actions we might need to take in the budget for reserve purposes this year, with enough accuracy that we feel confident that we're making smart decisions.
I think if you're looking for the answer, when are we gonna have the long-term rubric?
Yeah.
We got a year.
Okay.
In a year, you think we'll get this, the
Oh,
long-term?
I think we'll get it faster
But
than that.
you've got enough of an indication to
For this
do the
year.
budget, I guess?
For this budget, yes.
For this budget,
For this budget, we're good.
we're gonna be good.
And
Okay.
within
And-
by next year at this time, we should have the
The other
master
thing
plan.
when we had the meeting about this was a lot of, that there was sort of thinking about, this is gonna include a rejigger of like planning's view of new roads, and, some of this that was thought to have been caused by maybe poor choices in the past about people putting.
Yeah, there's a couple of other diversions that we're gonna take out of this discussion. We accepted roads that were never built
As they should have.
to the standard that they were expected to be built in that 70s, 80s, 90s period of time. If you want to see a good example of that, take a ride down Coughlin Drive, which is off of 172 north of South Britain. It's a cul-de-sac. It's actually an interesting study because, it serves 15, 20 houses, but it's a dead end. How much money should you spend on a road serving a limited group of people with maybe a 15 or 20 mile an hour speed, expected speed limit? But on the other hand, it needs to be safe and it needs to be navigable. And today, Coughlin is a little bit of a roller coaster. It needs significant attention. And it's an example of a road that was probably accepted by the town, not built to the standards that we accepted, that it should have been, so.
If you read the ordinance, I believe, Betsy was able to pull the ordinance for me, I believe it says the Board of Selectmen is supposed to inspect the roads prior to us taking them. So I think that may need to be changed as well to a town engineer or
Well-
something along those lines.
Yeah, and there ought to be approvals of plans, and there ought to be inspections during construction, because the errors the shortcuts that are taken in construction are taken during the construction project. Poor material choices, poor compaction, drainage. So, you know, that will require, I think, some thought and attention across multiple groups as well.
But you can get, we can get to a number for this budget that's not going to make us puke.
No,
We're good
what's
for this
in the
budget.
budget right
Good.
now
We have a good number for
is
this year,
certainly
Tom.
adequate for next year.
I want to,
But just to add to that, just one quick too, being in contact with the Naugatuck Valley Council of Governments, there are a lot of funding for a lot of these projects that we could take advantage of. So, you know, there is a list that I'm working with them, so.
Good.
I'd like to remind everyone, especially our new member, that before Jack went to business school and ran Fortune 1000 companies, he was a civil engineer. And was it the sewer systems in Chicago you did?
Yes.
Yeah, so.
Second river system
So
into the city of Chicago.
he is the Board of Finance's go-to guy when it comes to roads and bridges, because he understands what the people who know what they're talking about are talking about. So Jack, thank you. And we'll continue to lead on you to be voluntold for any one of a number of projects.
Happy to deal with roads and
Next,
sewers.
RUPAC. Tim, we need to replace Golenberg. Okay?
Replace Goldberg,
Don't forget. And no report. And the SMMR2, we had that, that's the replacement for the Energy Task Force, right?
Oh, yeah, add that at the end. No, it's not the replacement of the energy, that's just
Oh, we
different, it's a
gotta
whole
keep
different topic.
Oh, we got to keep the Energy Task Force. I thought
Yes.
that was done. No, we're still doing that?
Well-
We're still okay, Energy Task Force, what's the update?
Well, we're having a meeting tomorrow night, so that'll be the main thing, but I'm assuming that the solar's just ticking along, that the solar part's going along at per, you know,
Okay.
but I'll find out tomorrow the details.
Anything that's emergent, call me and we'll
Yeah.
respond if we need to.
Could you just make a mental note of looking, when plans are developed, how accessed
Okay,
to the property is expected to be navigated
okay,
through the transfer station? Because right now, the only access up to where the solar panels are gonna go is driveways at the transfer station.
okay. I'll check that. I'll make a note of that and I'll bring it to the Energy Task Force tomorrow.
Right now, people are scratching their heads, wondering how they're gonna do that, so let's just make sure it's not a surprise.
Okay.
Is there anything else to come before the meeting? If not, we are adjourned at 9:27.